sexual harassment claim within the Senate Personnel Office at the time. The Biden team absolutely rejects that any of that ever happened. Well, those papers exist. They're being held by the University of Delaware under seal to keep from coming out. So to me, that's another significant part of this story that we kind of need to stay on top of, because...
Meaning, if those papers exist, then it gives that much more credibility to Tara Reade's story, because it indicates that something took place back then. She responded to the thing that took place back then. And even though you can't necessarily scrutinize the exact thing that took place, because none of us were there, it's kind of like seeing a black hole. That basically, I can't necessarily see the black hole, but I can see things moving in response to that black hole. So, no, we can't see the act, but you can see her taking actions in response to whatever took place. Now, Tara Reade is the woman who accused Joe Biden, I think it was about 20 years ago, of basically sexually assaulting her. Now, this is part of her story. I mean, it was a violent assault.
We're alone. He just had me up against the wall. His hands were on me and underneath my clothes. Yeah, and then penetrated me with his fingers, whatever. I couldn't believe it was happening. It seems surreal.
This is Tara Reade. Tara Reade is a woman who... So that's her story. And like I said, this goes all the way back to, I think, to the 90s. She tried to get assistance in getting the story out. The organization that she tried to get assistance from, Time's Up, was supposed to be there in order to help women who were dealing with this particular issue, being a sexual assault claim. They wouldn't help her in this process. The people who at the same time screamed, "I believe women" under Brett Kavanaugh, or "I believe women" in the case of Bloomberg, well, those people no longer believe this particular woman, because this particular woman is getting in the way of either their candidate, Joe Biden, getting elected, or them getting the VP spot. My point is, her claim is credible. And it was credible when she first made that claim, but there's more evidence that's being aired now that gives even more credibility to Tara Reade's claim. Again, just because you can't necessarily see the event itself, if the person is responding to something in their life that has changed, then you can kind of point to and say, okay, well, there's at the very least evidence that something happened at that particular moment, and there's no reason to believe that it's not what she says it is. I want to go through the story, and I want to show the new evidence that's been released that's attesting to the fact that much more, apparently, that Tara Reade did contact people and did tell people about what happened, and that basically there was no response. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamal Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, subscribe. You can always support PayPal, Patreon. So the other day, I think it was either last week, Tara Reade filed a criminal complaint against Joe Biden. Thank you, brave journalists Ryan Grimm, Katie Halper, Rick McHugh, and luminaries that have slid by me, Susan Sarandon, John Cusack, Rose McGowan. I filed a police report for safety reasons only. All crime stats are beyond limitation. Gratitude for all those who have stood by me. So basically, look, I know this is beyond the time frame of limitations, but I filed it because I wanted to feel safe. Now, the other part to this has to do with, this is the intelligence. The Intelligencer. I think that's what it's called. No, I'm sorry, New York Mag Intelligencer, right? Key aspects of Reade's account, namely that she told friends and relatives about the incident, have proven true. The New York Times previously confirmed that Reade told a friend that the attack when it allegedly occurred. Another friend and a brother of Mrs. Reade said she told them over the years about a traumatic sexual incident involving Joe Biden, the Times reported. The Washington Post confirmed another Reade's claim. Her professional responsibilities changed around the time of the alleged assault. Reade initially oversaw internships at the Biden Senate office, but two former interns recalled that Reade abruptly stopped overseeing them in April, just a few weeks after the interns arrived. but neither was aware of the circumstances that led to her departure. Again, things are happening in response to something that people are not entirely aware of. Well, the moment that you kind of add in, I was sexually assaulted, then the other stuff started to make that much more sense in the reasons why she was behaving that way, the reasons why she was either taking off campaign's responsibilities, and the reason why she effectively told her family and friends. Now, the new bit of information that's out is this. In the same way, we're making the point that she did tell family and friends. Well, she told her mom. Now, her mom calls into Larry King around the time of the incident occurring. Ryan Grim was told that this is her late mom, who's basically talking about her case with Joe Biden in this kind of tongue-in-cheek way. Let's hear the clip.
A staffer would do besides go to the press in Washington. My daughter has just left there after working for a prominent senator and could not get through with her problems at all. And the only thing she could have done was go to the press, and she chose not to do it out of respect for him.
Or she had a story to tell, but out of respect for the person she worked for, she didn't tell it.
That's true.
Well, now, but these are the people who do come to the Lois Romanos, right? The staff worker who says, I want to let you know about what's going on, either with my boss or the guy down the hall.
And a lot of these people have a sense of obligation. They feel that this public official should be accountable if it's something wrong.
They're whistleblowers to the press.
Exactly.
Now, think about what you just saw. She tells her mom, I was sexually assaulted. Her mom, who loves her daughter, wants to find a way to deal with the situation, but doesn't quite know. Joe Biden is a powerful senator. The Time's Up organization didn't do anything about it. And in the case where people should have believed her, should have backed her up on it, for political reasons, they basically let her go by the wayside. Alyssa Milano, who again believed everything in the Brett Kavanaugh hearing, she backs Joe Biden full-throatedly. She comes out and saying, yeah, Time's Up didn't take this case, so, I'm okay with staying with Joe Biden. I believe women, but only Republicans apparently can rape. What this means is that she tells her mom is bothered by what her mom hears, realizes that she doesn't know what to do, and her thought is, well, it needs to be exposed because that's the only way in order to make this right. Because otherwise, nobody else is going to pay attention to the story. The story is just going to get buried in the way that the story got buried. So her mom calls Larry King and basically, in this kind of veiled way, makes this point about, the staffer assaulted, what is the person supposed to do in this situation, almost as if she's trying to elicit advice from Larry King in regards to what she should do. But the point where her daughter is like, I don't want to expose this because I don't necessarily want to screw over Biden. Well, at that point, the mom can't say anything, meaning the mom is somewhat restrained just by definition because the daughter decides that she doesn't want this stuff to be exposed. The mom went as far as she could possibly go with trying to get information and apparently leaving with basically nothing. The point is, if that is indeed her mom, which she says it is, then this adds that much more credibility to the case that something happened where she was perturbed, and in that assault potentially happening, she started responding to it, or the campaign started responding to those events back then. I guess my point is, this case is being ignored. This case is not going to be ignored forever, but this case is being ignored currently. When the election is locked in between Trump and Biden, I would imagine this case is going to get that much more airplay, and you're going to see whether or not Joe Biden has a glass jaw on the subject of rape, and whether Democrats are really going to make that argument of, well, both of these guys are rapists, so let's choose the rapists with the better policies. Again, missing the point that by not having standards, you incentivize your taking advantage of, and you incentivize this race to the bottom. The notion that you will be okay with voting for a rapist, what does that say going forward about your credibility in the political space, your leverage in the political space? Even what does it say that you're willing to accept? The Democratic Party and people of the Democratic Party needs to answer a very basic question. Is there anything that the party can do where you would no longer vote for the party? Meaning, is there anything that can take place where you would say, I'm done? I can't tolerate this anymore. I'm done. You've hit the bottom of the barrel. I am walking. Kind of like a union calling a strike, where they get to the point of saying, we're no longer going to accept this situation and we're leaving the premises. Is there any point where either lefties or creatures of the party get to that point? And if so, what is that point? And if the answer is no, then what does it matter that you're voting in a Democrat? You've basically said, I'm willing to put anybody in that office, regardless of what they do, regardless of what they support, just because they're not Republicans. And I'm making the point that as those guys move further and further to the right, at a certain point, those guys are Republicans just by a different name, and maybe a Republicans from, let's say, 10 years prior, but I'm making the point that they're still Republicans. Something needs to fundamentally change in the way we do politics. We have been doing this wrong. My only basic point is this will come up again. Mark my words. MSNBC, CNN, they're trying to ignore this. Fox News will be airing this. And as right-wing media airs this, they're not going to have a choice but to engage the story. And the moment they engage the story, well, at that point, this is going to be in the general. Sanders, nobody else brought the story up. So the explosion of the story will take place while you are in the middle of the general election. Joe Biden has said this is not true. He said this through his delegates. But the catch is, they've had Joe Biden on the air. And they would never ask him this question. They asked Sanders this question. They asked AOC this question. But the person who's the subject of it didn't bring it to him. Again, they're protecting Joe Biden. And this is not their job, but this is what they're doing. They're thinking, we want to get rid of Trump. Biden is the guy who's acceptable to us. He said nothing's going to change. Let's rock. And so what do? They take a light touch regarding Biden, even on issues of lying, even on issues of hypocrisy. Like these items that should matter, that they would hit Donald Trump for, Biden just gets a pass on. So, Sanders, and I would even say the left, did not do Joe Biden any favors. It's counterintuitive, but the way that you would have actually helped Joe Biden was to hold Joe Biden accountable by basically saying, you're not getting our support unless you toe a particular policy. Also, there's this secondary thing that the moment that you get him to make that concession, you organically peel people off as opposed to just trying to cajole people into voting for your candidate. I'm making the point that that's a better way to go about it and a more certain way of trying to get support. In the context of picking somebody who has a rape allegation against them, I think that's just treacherous. Like I said, they cared more about stopping Sanders than they did about Trump. And again, it once again shows in the case of a guy who's basically been accused of rape. And that guy who's been accused of rape, the woman who's accusing him, has all sorts of ancillary items around the time that this took place that lends credence and evidence to her allegations. And yet, mainstream media is like, nothing to see here, folks, and we're just going to pretend that it doesn't exist. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. And that's like so sad that for political reasons, they're perfectly willing to let this woman's story go by the wayside. It's utterly horrendous. So Brax Salah today. Does Biden remember the rape? It's an honest question to ask considering his state of mind. State of mind is right, meaning that's not altogether there. Like, share, subscribe. I'll see you guys later in the day.